Today we've got two endurance bike titans going head to head, but who comes out on top? That's Giant's all-new Defy Advanced and specialised latest SL8 Roubaix. From Giant, they've taken the legendary Defy and put it on a diet and given it much more integration and even given it a sportier ride. Specialised, meanwhile, have taken the always all-road capable Roubaix and thrown in lots of aero from the tarmac SL8. Well, what would you do if you own your own wind tunnel? Before I get into the details, I'll lay our cards on the table. We don't have equally equipped bikes. From Giant, it's the flagship Defy Advanced SL0. That's the superbike specification costing £11,499 or $12,000. From Specialised, we have the Roubaix SL8 Expert at £6,000 or $6,500. So, for fairness sake, I'm not going to be comparing builds and specifications. This is all about the ride. Let's talk about the frame sets. Giant have taken the Defy silhouette from the previous generation bike and added more integration. With Giant's own cockpit, you get full internal brake hose routing. They've also slimmed down the fork whilst adding tyre clearance up to a generous 38mm. The frame and fork have both shed considerable weight too, with a medium frame weighing just 785 grams. That's saving 190 over the old model, and the fork is down to just 350 grams, 15% lighter than the old fork. Weights like those put the Defy in the realms of a pure race bike, but they haven't skimped on the essentials. You still get proper mudguard or fender mounts and a removable rear bridge for the rear guard. Aero hasn't been forgotten, with the fork legs and the seat tube both having truncated airfoil profiles, with the interface between the fork, head tube and main tubes looking very much like a slimmed down version of Giant's own Propel aero bike. Specialised, meanwhile, have been very busy in their Morgan Hill wind tunnel, taking the Roubaix back to the drawing board and bringing in lots and lots of aero. It gives the Roubaix a look not dissimilar to the SL8 tarmac, albeit with a taller front end. Up front, the latest incarnation of the FutureShock system brings fluid damping and real springs to the equation. Though, if you want the adjustable damping, you have to step up to the 3.3 unit found on the £12,000 S-Works and £8,000 Pro models. This £6,000 Expert model gets the 3.2 unit. It's essentially the same, but without the adjustable damper. Here, it's set in the middle position for damping. Honestly, I never felt like the front end was either too soft or too hard, irrespective of the surface quality underfoot. At the rear, a new seat tube shape and a deep aero seat post that looks very similar to the one found on the tarmac replaces the old super flexible slender post. The frame and fork are now designed to accommodate tyres up to a huge, for a road bike, 40mm. That has the effect on the wheelbase of 1031mm. The Giant, in comparison, is 6mm shorter. The frame is lighter than the previous generation by a few grams, a claimed 50 grams on the S-Works level frame. At 828 grams, it's 43 grams heavier than the Defy, and the fork at 330 grams is 20 grams lighter than the fork on the Defy. But once you add in the 450 grams for the FutureShock, it actually makes it much heavier. Plus, the deep, dedicated aero post on the SL8 Roubaix is heavier than the slender defuse post on the Defy. Even if the Roubaix frame set is heavier than Defy, losing 50 grams over the previous generation is actually quite an achievement, especially when you consider the amount of aerodynamic restyling that's gone on, along with the increased clearance and the additional mounts. Those additional mounts include a third set of bottle bosses underneath the down tube and a set of bento box mounts on the top tube. It's these details that push the Roubaix into much more of an all-road and even gravel racing than ever before. Though, thankfully, they haven't forgotten their road roots and still have provided provision for mudguards, fenders, both at the front and rear. I know I wasn't going to compare the builds, as that wouldn't be fair, but I will give a quick insight into what you get on comparable bikes. The Roubaix Expert has rival ETAP axis with the optional single-sided Quark power meter and Roval's base model Terra C carbon wheels and an alloy bar and stem. At £6,000, the equivalent Defy is the Advanced Pro Zero, which gets Shimano Ultegra Di2, a dual-sided power meter, carbon wheels and a carbon bar for the same price. At the other end of the scale, the Defy Advanced SL0 at £11,499 or $12,000 gets you SRAM Red ETAP axis, a Quark D0 power meter, Cadex 36 carbon wheels and carbon everything. The equivalent S-Works Roubaix at £12,000 or $14,000 gets you SRAM Red ETAP axis, carbon everything and Roval Terra CLX2 wheels. So I'd say Giant edges it on the value front at both ends of the scale. Despite both being endurance bikes, they are in fact very different propositions. Let's move on to those all-important ride impressions. Hand on heart, I've loved previous generations of both the Defy and the Roubaix, and I'm similarly a fan of both here too. The last gen Defy range topped out at the Pro Zero level with Ultegra Di2, but with a Pro level equipped bike and the lightened frame set, Giant is showing some commitment to the endurance bike as a format. When plenty of other brands are smushing their endurance models into Suedo gravel bikes, Giant has made the latest Defy more pure road, and it's all the better for it. The steering geometry is unchanged from the last gen bike and the one before that, and that is perhaps the most important element of the new Defy. The change in stack height with a reduction of 9mm doesn't sound much, but on the road the Defy feels like a faster bike. That may have plenty to do with the new slippery shape and the improvement in both wheel technology and tyres in the years since the last Defy. Compared to the Roubaix, it's 34mm lower, though the Defy's reach is actually 4mm shorter than the Roubaix. Out on my familiar roads, this Defy felt like my own TCR, rather than a relaxed long-distance cruiser that endurance bikes are often perceived to be. The new stack is only 15mm taller than a TCR, and the reach is just 9mm shorter. There's one significant difference over the TCR, however, and that's just how calm the Defy rides when the going gets rough. Whereas a stiff race bike like the TCR will dash and dart over rougher and poorer road textures, the Defy simply wafts over it, maintaining its pace with ease, whilst the brilliant post and bar isolate wearing vibrations from you admirably. The bar down in the drops feels like a sprint-ready stiff carbon bar. The Roubaix is a quick bike, and the steering swiftness adds plenty to the fun factor too. The front end's constant active feel makes it stand out from the crowd, and the bike's ability to cope with road imperfections and even obstacles, bumps, scars and even smaller potholes makes progress swift, as you don't have to look to avoid or slow down when things start getting choppy. It's especially good on descents, where corners are broken up on the surface and washed grit and gravel onto the optimal line. On the Roubaix, I found I just didn't need to back off, and the large tyres, which spread close to 34mm, only add to the confidence. On rolling roads with changeable surfaces, however, it did become apparent that the Roubaix ride feel is split between a smooth front end and a firmer rear end. On bigger bumps and rougher roads, the back end does get moving and takes the edge off and reduces vibrations, though on better kept roads it's noticeably stiffer at the back. This could be alleviated if Specialized made different weights of seat post available, like they do with the sleeve system on the Diverge STR. Comparing the two side by side, the Defy is very much the roadie's endurance bike, whereas the Roubaix is a little bit more adventurous, though the Roubaix just comes across a little confused. The Roubaix is undoubtedly an impressive bike. The ride smothers rougher roads like little else. That said, the Roubaix's reinvention comes across somewhat unbalanced. The frame's lighter, they've shaped and shaved to reduce drag, but at the same time added features usually found on gravel bikes. The ride has a similar imbalance between front and rear and shows itself much more on smooth tarmac than it does on rough, ragged roads and light gravel. And that's both the Roubaix's strength and its weakness. On one side, it's a hugely versatile and comfortable bike with a great turn of pace. On the other, it's a bit hefty and it's not quite as agile as a pure road endurance bikes like Giant's elegant Defy. I'm not 100% sure on what Specialized intended the new Roubaix to be. It's a very good all-rounder, but I'd argue it's not a class leader either on-road or off. Whereas arguably its previous Future Shock predecessors very much were king of the rough road. So if you are in the market for a comfortable, versatile bike, then the Roubaix is near as good as it gets. But I love that Giant has kept the Defy experience pure and not felt the need to muddy, literally, this road-bound style of bike. The Defy's latest iteration has kept the class-leading road-going smoothness and handling earned by its predecessors. What they've changed modernises the bike, but it also brings an element of race-bred excitement too. Now, if I was in the market for a new road bike, and let's face it, I'm always in the market for a new road bike, I'd be looking at the Defy. Not because it's sensible with its generous tyre clearances and mudguard provision, but because it's exciting to ride, and the compliance and comfort doesn't erode that excitement, I'd say it enhances it. Confidence comes in spades when riding close to the limit with the Defy. As a long-term TCR devotee, I may just be switching my allegiance when it comes to Giant's road-going range. So my winner is the Giant Defy. You can, of course, disagree with me. Feel free to in the comments below. And once you've done that, why not watch this video and see which bike won our 2023 Endurance Bike of the Year.